Welcome back to the #1 breakfast show in the country, Morning at NTV. My name is Romy Busiku. One conversation that always pops up when politics is mentioned within Africa is this issue of skyrocketing youth unemployment, given also the skyrocketing number of people or population dividend within the African jurisdiction. 1.3 billion people, you have 50% of them being young people and 50% of those young people grappling with youth unemployment. What is the issue in Uganda? How many are wallowing in destitution and what can be done? Williams Ezi, he is the Director of Communications at Black Wall Street and he joins us to compound more on this conversation on youth unemployment. A very good morning, Mr. Ezi.
Good morning.
Okay, first of all, Mr. Ezi, what are some of the issues affecting youth in Africa?
Oh, well, like you started mentioning some of them.
Yes.
Youth unemployment, youth restiveness, inability of the youth to be properly engaged in the production system, in the production sector, and actively involved in the private sector. These are the things that actually we see a lot of our youths not involved in. And of course, the government inability to create an enabling environment for the private sectors to thrive. And of course, the real sector's participation in creating opportunities for the youth to participate in our economy.
Of course, this is what we saw in the United States during the Donald Trump presidency. More jobs were being created by the private sector. So even in Africa, you think it can be done by government supporting the private sector to create more jobs for the young people?
Well, the truth is that it is not really the job of the government to provide the jobs.
Just the enabler?
No, yes, they enable the environment. It's the job of the private sector to provide jobs for the nation.
So how can governments create that enabling environment for the young people to secure their futures?
Well, a whole lot depends on the system of the economy that the government actually practice. All right? For instance, in the West, they have a whole lot of activities of capitalism.
Capitalism?
Yes. Capitalism, as it were, you know, is a system of, it's political and economic system, all right, where the trade and industry are owned or controlled by the private sector for profit. Now, capitalism itself has its ideals that it promotes. For instance, one of its ideas is highest aspirations. Now, as little as it sounds, the highest aspiration becomes a strong stimulus in driving the participation of the private sector in making the economy to blossom.
Of course, Mr. Ezi, but what are you doing as Black Wall Street to try to fix these challenges?
Yes, you know, when we came out as Black Wall Street, of course, what we came particularly in this season is to foster the economy we call the compassionate capitalism. And what is compassionate capitalism? Compassionate capitalism is a system of economy where the organized private sector leverages on the producer's profit to create investment points for the consumers, to create jobs, and for the consumers to participate in the production process of what they consume.
How does it work? It's a bit confusing, Ezi. Explain. Explain further. Yes.
All right, so I'm here actually in the capacity to represent Charles N. Lambert. Charles N. Lambert is the creator of compassionate capitalism. Now, what we have here, you know, when you started to discuss about youth unemployment, you know, you started to talk about the economy. And I said, you can't talk about youth unemployment as an isolated case. You know, for you to talk about youth unemployment, you're also going to talk about the unemployment generally. And of course, you can't talk about unemployment generally without looking into the system of economy that the nation, or as a continent, practice. Now, Africa, for instance, you know, have a peculiar case in the sense that we have some sort of a borrowed system of economy that is not really...
just like the education system.
Yes, they're all borrowed. It's not akin to our nature.
So we need to restructure it to fit our realities.
We are preaching a revolution, a total overhaul, a total replacement of capitalism. Because we must create that system of economy that Africa can own, that Africa can embrace, that Africa can preach. And it rests on the foundation of a philosophy we call the Ubuntu philosophy. Ubuntu is what is close to Africa. Ubuntu is part of the second nature of Africans. Ubuntu...
Africa for Africa.
Yeah, Africa for Africa. Ubuntu says, I am because we are. And we said that the economy rests on a certain philosophy. Now, Ubuntu is the ethos, it's the spirituality, all right, that bind the Africans. Because it says, I am, because we are. Now, without Ubuntu creates the foundation that promotes meeting of needs. Ubuntu promotes helping each other, leveraging
patriotism,
patriotism, leveraging on each other's strength, not being selfish. Ubuntu looks out, for the welfare of the other. And also, with this system of economy, which we call compassionate capitalism, resting on Ubuntu. Let me take, for instance, how would you tell a producer to release his profit to create an investment point for a consumer? He must be thinking Ubuntu.
Indeed.
He must be thinking that I am because we are. He must be thinking with that mindset. Okay? And when he thinks in that mindset, it is what is natural to Africans. That's the nature of Africans. We live communally. We care for ourselves. We love ourselves. And so when we begin to practice that compassionate capitalism as created by our leader Charles N. Lambert and begin to use it as a revolution to drive the economy, of course, you see that what we experience is what we call transformative industrialization. Because you don't just wait for to get paid at the end of the day.
Indeed.
But then the individuals also become part of the production process, become owners of the production process for every single thing that they consume. So with that, there's a bottom-up approach of economic revolution that will spring across the whole of Africa.
But is it possible, Mr. AZ, is it feasible to actually achieve compassionate capitalism, given the fact that currently we are very disunited? You have many African countries at war. You have young people up in arms trying to take over their governments, respective governments. Yes. People are disunited. Do you think compassionate capitalism can actually be achieved at this point in time when politics has divided so many people?
Now, because we have not been able to define a collective economic interest. The reason people are fighting, people are struggling, is because of poverty. Poverty is a whole lot of the reason behind, apart from power, political power. But indeed, poverty is one of the core reasons why people are agitating. All right? So when people have all their needs met, when people are prosperous, okay, they won't be carrying arms against each other.
Yes.
So one of the things that compassionate capitalism define is a common economic collective goal for everybody that actually binds us together. So that's why we believe that compassionate capitalism is the new economy that Africa must own, that Uganda must own, of course. And of course, we own it, we practice it, and then prosper in it, and eventually preach it to the rest of humanity globally. And of course, you can see that capitalism has failed even the West. If you watch what is going on, if you are of course, you are a news person, of course, we see that capitalism has failed. What we have is some level of artificial stimulus when the people get broke. Why do people get broke? So we don't want an economy where people get broke intermittently, but a system that continuously receives some level of stimulation, because the people are the owners of the production system, and the people collectively drive the economy.
As you mentioned, something that is really pertinent, poverty being the driver of most of these conflicts that we are seeing. Now, if these governments do not do enough to do away with youth unemployment, do you think we shall actually persistently deal with these conflicts within Africa, 1.3 billion people?
Well, you have a point there. That is why we are saying it's a clarion call we are making to say that it's expedient that the government embrace this particular revolution that we're preaching. And interestingly, I think Uganda is beginning to embrace a bit of this compassionate capitalism economy through your active participation in what we're doing at the Black Wall Street. Yes.
All right, besides compassionate capitalism, what else are you doing to fix the challenges that young people are grappling with in Africa or Uganda as a whole?
Well, like I said before, that is the foundation. Now,
so compassionate capitalism is the only foundation?
It's the economy. It's the foundation. It's from there you begin to talk about every other thing.
Go ahead.
Just like capitalism provides the foundation by which you begin to address every other aspect of the economy. Now, compassionate capitalism is the foundation. You begin to embrace most of the things that we are currently doing at the Black Wall Street.
All right, let's expound more on the role of the private sector players, Mr. Eze, in helping alleviate the challenges that the youth are grappling with, like unemployment.
Yeah. So can you point to the direction you want to talk about the private
sector players? Yes.
Yeah.
What role should they be playing?
Well, the private sector's role, immediately the government provide that enabling environment. Now, the private sector, their role will be to diversify, all right? Economic diversification, you know, creates opportunity for activity-based, you know, participation by the youths. And of course, you can't actually diversify without funds. You can't actually promote the private sector without funds. Let me give you an instance. Now, our core vision at the Black Wall Street is to be the engine for capital generation for the industrialization of the African continent. Hear me very well.
Yeah.
Now, you can't industrialize a nation. You cannot industrialize a continent without funds.
Yes.
So how do you generate funds? All right. So the systems that we have actually adopted in generating funds is what I still mentioned. Now, for instance, at the Black Wall Street, I will use the Black Wall Street as a reference point. Now, we started by some level of participation in we have what we call the 28 app corporation that drive that whole compassionate capitalism activity. Now, those 28 app corporations define activities of jobs. They are the sectors that measure, you know, the needs of every area that we are involved in. Let's say for Africa, we've been able to divide Africa into 600 jurisdictions, what we call development centers. And I think Uganda has about 20. Now, in these development centers, each section caters for 2 million people. Now, in that development center, we have the M7 Agricultural Bank that we are building.
Yes.
The M7 Agricultural Bank houses a data collection center and also a command center. It's also an instrument which we intend to commercialize agriculture, because you know that agriculture is actually the strongest, one of the strongest foothold of.
We have some 11 million vacancies right here in Uganda waiting to be tapped into.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, so what we have established in
a data bank. Yes.
Yes, it's a data bank that we practice precision agriculture, and we want to use it to commercialize agriculture. And of course,
how will, in particular, the viewer is watching right now, the young person who is interested in agriculture, how will they benefit directly from this agriculture bank?
Yes, now the agriculture bank is going to be built. So currently, as we speak, we have employment opportunity for over 1 million Ugandans.
1 million?
Yes,
amazing.
Over 1 million.
Amazing.
Yes.
Go ahead, Eze.
Now, because for us to be able to build that agriculture bank, the redirect malls, we call them the supermarkets, the agriculture bank, and some of the franchises that we have as an organization, we have to have construction workers. We also have to have security workers who are going to guard all those infrastructure that we are building. So that already takes in.
Will the bank be offering loans to the young people who want to venture into agriculture?
Now you are coming to where we are, where we have our stronghold. Now, you remember I mentioned before that we have 28 app corporations. Now, these corporations are like companies that actually are what we are using to drive this economy we call the compassionate capitalism. We have some of them that address loans, that address credit. Now, I want to explain a bit of what that whole thing is all about. Please now, the M7 Agriculture Bank, I said it's a data collection center.
Indeed.
Now, the way we divided Africa over 600 jurisdictions. Now, each jurisdiction or development center cater for 2 million people.
Right.
Now, each M7 bank is able to measure the 2 million people access to basic human needs. what is their access to security, their access to loan, their access to water, their access to food, their access to elderly care.
So they don't just look at you, come in, ask for a loan, but also other issues, accessibility to security, water, and so forth. That is amazing.
You remember when I started before, I said you can't talk about youth employment from an isolated point of view. You must talk about it as
there are other factors that precipitate
that must work. And I said one of the fundamental things is to define the economy that nation or that continent is resting upon.
I'm loving these conversations with William Daisy, the Director of Communications, Black Wall Street. Go ahead.
So you must understand that. You can't isolate it. It's the system of the economy that creates the foundation for the youth unemployment, for the youth employment to thrive, for industrialization to thrive, for different diversification of the economies to thrive.
Back to the monitoring system.
Now, back to the monitoring system. So this M7 measures access to basic human needs, and by that monitoring and measurement, it also acts as a command center that ensures that the 2 million people within that circumference or within that jurisdiction have access to these basic human needs. And of course, you know that Africa is one of the most disadvantaged in terms of access to basic needs. And so that's what this M7 Agriculture Bank are supposed to address. They also house collation and data center for the redirect malls. We have another aspect, a part of our app corporation, or part of our Trinity Platform entity, which we call the redirect mall. This is the system by which we also market the what some will call supermarket policy. Of course, we have a whole lot of things going on the Black Wall Street, like a whole new economy. All right, so they also measure the distribution of goods and services and monitor the development of this jurisdiction wherever they are concentrated.
Will young people be given skills in agriculture? Will they be imparting agriculture skills?
We're not just asking people to enroll. Yes, of course, we have a training center. Of course, we're developing a business school that will be managing all the franchise owners.
This is super amazing.
It's super amazing. Of course, this is the good thing that's about happening to Uganda, because we are trying to let Ugandans understand that Uganda is the capital of Africa. And Uganda being the capital of Africa, Uganda will benefit much more before the whole lot of what we plan to dispense to the whole of Africa begins.
And Uganda also having the second most youthful population. This will come in handy.
See, interestingly, by some providence, Uganda is the capital. And what we've been trying to do is to let Ugandans know that they are the capital of Africa. Uganda is the only country that have actually driven and pioneered the Pan-African system, the Pan-Africanism.
But then on the flip side, Uganda is also dealing with a skyrocketing number of people who are unemployed. Yes, you do know this fact. And when you move around, there's this chorus that you'll hear, Mr. Eze Williams, that government etuyambi, government should come and help us. So on the issue of creating of jobs, what should happen? Is it the government to create the jobs, or is it government to just be an enabler that creates a platform where young people can thrive?
There's a lacuna that has actually existed in your system in Uganda.
Yes.
All right. The government, that space there is a whole lot of government activities, a whole lot of government orientation. But the private sector here have not taken the challenge to drive the provide.
Is it the private sector not taking on the challenge, or government not enabling the private sector to do what it has to do?
I think the government has done a great job in creating an enabling environment, but the interpreters, probably, people who are interpreting, like in some other countries, they have national orientation agencies that actually communicate what the government is doing, they communicate what the government has done, they communicate what are available, to the people. And of course, you can't actually deny the fact that the private sector have not actually done, a great deal of what they are supposed to do here in Uganda in creating job opportunities for the youths. So I think there's going to be some level of shift and adjustment on both sides. But then, that is the reason why we are here also, the Black Wall Street. Of course, by providence, we are here at this particular time in Uganda, and it's not by mistake that we are here, to enable the private sector, as it were, you know, to make sure that the private sector have enough funds. The entrepreneurs that are springing up in Uganda have enough funds. Of course, you know that four factors of production: land, labor, entrepreneurship, and capital. A lot of people don't have access to capital. They want to make sure that the young entrepreneurs, you know, in Uganda have access to capital to some of the schemes that we are running. So some of the product purchase investment schemes that we're running, and through some of the franchises that we are running right now in the Black Wall Street strategic development plans. So we have these franchises, and when people participate in these franchises, they have a portfolio of investments that they can actually benefit from. And of course, those of them that participated in the product purchase investment could actually cash out sums of money that can actually work as capital, you know, for funding their business. And of course, when they have funds, they can build institutions, they can build organizations where the youth can actually be gainfully employed.
William says, help me convince the skeptical viewer who is watching Morning at NTV right now, because we did mention it's not government that creates the jobs, but it creates an enabling environment.
Exactly, yes.
They still need to be convinced. Please, this camera. I'm in Uganda, and it's hard to convince people that it's not government that creates the jobs.
Well, if you look at America, you know, I can tell the youth, I was once a youth. I didn't come here to talk about how I was able to build a fish farm, how I was able to engage in some commercial agriculture. No, you know, but what I come here to give is the information. You know, that if you look at America, for instance, as an economy, America was built by the private sector.
Indeed, of course.
Of course. So, I mean, if you look at Europe, all right, they were built by the private sector. So we wouldn't experience a totally different scenario. And of course, some of the political parts of the continent, you know, countries might not have the will and the creativity, you know, to create that enabling environment. But I have to tell the youth, it's not really the role of the government. It's the private sector that creates job opportunities for the youths, and of course for every person to participate.
So the clamor right now should be directed at government to create an enabling government for the private sector, which will in turn help the young people.
Exactly.
Let's bring it to Uganda. What do you think are some of the challenges or problems making it hard for our young people within this jurisdiction to thrive, and how can they be fixed?
The first is education.
Great point.
Now, when I say education, I'm not just saying your educational system. Now, we usually will say, from the Black Wall Street point of view, that Africa will emerge as a superpower nation. Of course, Uganda also, through education and new economy.
Not the broad education, though. Go ahead and expound.
All right.
Yes.
Now, what we are doing here is more of public enlightenment.
Indeed.
Letting the youth know that, hey, you don't look at the government, and look at the youths. Don't look at the government, look at the private sector.
Yes.
All right. So that whole, that knowledge itself creates a paradigm shift. So the private sector they have to be up and about. Yes. They have to be stimulated, somehow. And they have to,
like, all right, we can't do this on our own. We need the help of government. So, bam, let's do it.
Exactly. So, but that whole mass awareness, shifts the whole.
That's what you mean by education.
Yes, that's
information
what I mean
you'll not get in a classroom.
Yes.
All right.
That whole education, and of course, you now go forward. You now go forward into the education of finance. There's something we call financial education. That you went and studied.
Financial literacy.
That you went and studied 2 + 2 being 4. Of course, the whole lot of the quadratic equation does not mean that you are proficient in financial education.
Yeah.
Of course, and that is what we are also doing at the Black Wall Street. We are bringing a whole new spectrum of financial education, a whole new spectrum of opportunities and possibilities that are actually here in Uganda.
So besides education being one of the challenges young people in Uganda are grappling with, what are some of those other problems that make it hard for them to thrive?
Well, access to funds, access to credits.
Biggest problem.
Access to credit.
Biggest problem, I tell you. William Zazi, that's the biggest problem in Uganda right
now. Yeah. So, but you see, like I said,
and I'm sure the whole of Africa.
Yes, of course. And why is it so? Because we have a large chunk of credit or finance concentrated in just a small percentage of people. Boom, capitalism.
The 1% running the 99%.
You see what I'm saying?
I see very
well. Are you getting the point?
Yes.
Boom, back to capitalism again. Where one person controls over 80% of the whole earth's resources. And of course, this earth belongs to the Lord, you know. Of course, he has made his covenant with the poor. He wants to ensure that the poor, that the consumers, that the average person out there has access to credit, has access to home, has access to security, has access to basic life provisions. Are you getting this point?
Indeed.
But what we are bringing...
That's the ennobled environment that you were talking about.
Exactly.
It takes us back.
So we are creating a whole new psyche where we are letting the people own Uganda for themselves. You know, I happen to have some chat with some of prospecting investors who wanted to buy into some of our franchises. And I think one of them was the septuagenarian. And we spoke about, you know, leaving a legacy. All right. And of course, many of them has actually been able to acquire things. And I told him something. I said, now you can appreciate that we have borrowed a system of economy that has not helped us.
Indeed.
We have borrowed a system of economy that has worked against us.
It's time to fine-tune it.
It is time to overhaul it. We are not fine-tuning it.
Just overhaul the whole thing.
Yes.
With compassionate
capitalism and organized others. It's a system of politics that completely eradicates poverty. Poverty is eradicated when the people own the production process of what they consume. And of course, you know that Africa has a magnificent buying capacity. Now, this consumption capacity that Africans own is what we are converting to an opportunity. So you are using what you're actually used to, buying Africa or doing buying Africa, you know, for Africans. All right? Ubuntu. I am. Because so we can't talk about compassionate capitalism without mentioning Ubuntu. And we cannot talk about creating jobs. We cannot talk about creating an enabling environment without talking about these things.
So it all goes back to Pan-Africanism.
It goes back. Uganda's future, Uganda's prosperity is hinged on them embracing Pan-Africanism. And I think your president, Museveni, has been preaching this thing for a very long time. Uganda's destiny will be actualized when they own that they are the ones that are going to drive and be at the forefront of Pan-Africanism. Because let's even talk about...
Don't wait for the solution from the West. Create it as Africa.
Yes. You don't wait for it to be created. It has already been created. All you need to do is just accept it and own it. Come for the education of what it actually means. Embrace the opportunities that we have actually created at the Black Wall Street. Seek to understand. Participate in all the product purchase investment scheme that we have, all the franchise schemes that we have. Embrace all the portfolio of investment that we have already produced and developed at the Black Wall Street, and you will see Uganda completely turn around and prosper. Because when you talk about market, when you want to start a business, one of the first things that you'll actually think about is the market. Where's the market? Now, the market is not just the 35 million people. For instance, Pan-Africanism alone means that Uganda will be exporting construction workers and security personnel to the whole other 580 jurisdictions across Africa. That's already an active job creation already here, already immediate, that can actually start from tomorrow. Immediately one big shot, one private sector take on one of our franchise schemes, for instance, and decides to have the M7 built in his jurisdiction. We have 20 jurisdictions in Uganda here already selected. Immediately one person decides to do this, to pick up one franchise. Boom. We're already creating over 100 jobs.
I hear you.
I'm telling you the truth. We're already creating 1,000 jobs. Then immediately the 20 of them start operating in Uganda alone. We have not even talked about the platform we have. In the Black Wall Street, we've also been able to build a world-class stock exchange platform that actually could rival with the NASDAQ. Now, this platform also houses our social media platform. We now have our own social media platform. We call it the Economic Circle. So we're actually intending to put over 100 million active participants in that economic circle platform where we can actually begin to teach the people and begin to indoctrinate them with the fundamentals and ideals of compassionate capitalism that is going to deliver us from this level of poverty and penury that we have found ourselves in and make Uganda a prosperous nation. Then actually their market can expand beyond the 35 million people that are already here. Now they have the access of the whole of Africa. And interestingly, we have now signed the agreement, the Pan-African agreement with 53 other African.
Amazing, yeah.
Yes, so that agreement, that free trade agreement, actually unifies the African's economy also. It means that the whole of Africa is open to us. But they can't, Uganda cannot access what I am saying until they embrace Pan-Africanism. They must.
And back to Pan-Africanism, is the lack of Pan-Africanism within Africa to blame for the increasing or skyrocketing levels of the brain drain that we've been seeing? People forgetting their jurisdictions, going abroad to seek for jobs. Pan-Africanism.
Well, Pan-Africanism is actually what actually delivers us from that whole brain drain, that whole exportation of ideas. And not just an exportation of our ideas, but exportation of our funds also.
Because it happened to me, William says.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I got a chance to go to France. I was around 16, but then I said, if I go to France, I'll almost forget about the machinations of how Uganda is being run. Then I was like, you know what, let me just stay here.
Stay back.
You know, take a look at what is happening within my country.
Yeah.
When I become a journalist, I'll be able to talk about the issues affecting my people. But if I had gone to France, I'd still be there. So the brain drain and Pan-Africanism, love for your country, love for your jurisdiction. If you have none of that in your country, is that the reason why we are seeing people vacating their countries and going abroad to seek for better livelihoods?
Yes, exactly. That's the reason why. That's actually the reason why they are moving out. And of course, like I said, I started saying, they are not just moving out, personnel. They are also moving out funds. Now, from the consumption of foreign goods and services, we actually lose over 203 to $1 trillion annually. We call it capital flight. So capital flight is one of the core reasons also why we are poor. But Pan-Africanism reverses the system of trade. Pan-Africanism will reverse the balance of trade to be once again in our favor. So it's important that we embrace Pan-Africanism so that we will stop losing the capital flight, over $203 billion annually.
It seems like largely what we've been talking about, Williams, AZ, are the theoretical bits of what needs to be done to alleviate unemployment within Africa. But then let's talk about the practical bits of what needs to be done. Expound on that.
Yeah, if you were listening very
I was, but it was more of theoretical.
Yeah, you would have heard me say that we currently have 20 jurisdictions practically.
Agricultural banks and everything.
Yes, we already have 20. And I told you that 20 functional now will create an immediate employment for over 200.
Because in Uganda here, we talked about education, education for our young people. Enlightenment, sensitization, training, and so forth. And then we also did talk about access to other basic needs and so forth. But it doesn't talk about how we alleviate unemployment as a whole. Let's talk about the practical bits before we leave the studio.
All right, so the practical, you can't stare me off this practical thing that we have embraced.
As Black Wall Street.
As the Black Wall Street. Of course, everything I'm going to say will be, the strength of the things I'm going to be saying will be from the strength of what Charles N. Lambert, all right, the leader of Africa First Economic War, has created. Now, we have already created a system on ground. We have already put something on ground in Uganda. So, the practicality of what we have already created is here before us in Uganda, is here before us in 20 jurisdictions, is here before us that immediately you begin to embrace the recipe we have. We call it a trap and reinvest recipe. Immediately you embrace this recipe, that jobs will begin to be created from tomorrow. I can tell you from tomorrow.
So what I'm also getting is that Black Wall Street rebranded from the Development Channel. And some of these recommendations had been birthed by the Development Channel. Expand more on that.
Now, the Black Wall Street is not, it didn't just evolve from the Development Channel, but the Black Wall Street is a part of a platform we call the Trinity Platform. You understand what I'm saying? Now, the Trinity Platform is made up of the Development Channel, the Black Wall Street, and the Redirect Mall. It is through these three entities that actually work together as one, like you have the Trinity, Father, God, Son, the Holy Ghost. It is through this Trinity platform that we plan to execute compassionate capitalism as an economic principle.
So what happened to the development channel, Mr. Isaac?
It's still functional. It's, as I said, it's an entity that is like a sister company.
So it's independent, but within that jurisdiction. But then you also have the development channel, Black Wall Street.
No, I said Trinity Platform. Say Trinity Platform.
Trinity Platform.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Trinity Platform is made up of development channel, the Black Wall Street, and the Redirect Mall.
Yeah.
Now, while the Black Wall Street functions as the stock exchange where we list all the opportunities, all the investment opportunities that exist, now the Redirect Mall is our e-commerce platform from which we trap. It is where we sell. It's like our own African Jumia, our own African Konga, our own African Amazon. It is where we trap all the funds. It's where you can go and procure all our goods and services that we actually market. So while the development channel is responsible for ensuring that those infrastructures are actually built into brick and mortar, into things that you can actually touch. And I sincerely don't believe that this is going to be the last time we're going to be talking. Yeah. Because in few weeks from now, what we'll probably be doing will be to show you pictures of what is already ongoing that is built. Hardcore brick and mortar. Okay,
let's talk about some of the Ugandans who had subscribed to the development channel. How have they benefited from this subscription? Have they actually gotten their benefits?
Did you know that we are just about to start withdrawals?
You're just about to start, meaning they have not benefited yet?
Yes, I think they have. When most of them, how have they benefited? Of course, when they had systems of commission that was designed, by which they were able to directly earn from the system. They had benefited from that. Now, but the system of withdrawal is just about to kick in, because throughout all these years, I think on the 11th of January was the 10th year anniversary of going through our development stage.
I think that's what the sticky issue was, Williams. So people saying we had subscribed to the development channel. Now we are here in Black Wall Street.
Initiated. When a company, when an organization initiates, they've gone public. And that's why we now have the franchises.
The franchises.
The franchise is important that you understand. We intend to list over 101 franchises as investment opportunities.
So as of now, we have no beneficiaries.
Like I said, the first beneficiaries were the ones that directly benefited from the direct commissions, but they are just about to begin withdrawals. I think from April, we'll start withdrawals.
So here's the pertinent question the viewer is asking right now. So why should I invest in Black Wall Street, BWS, when I haven't received my benefits from the development channel?
Yeah, because
Amazon, and how are we addressing unemployment with these discrepancies?
Amazon is one of the richest companies. Amazon has never paid anybody dividends since they started. Did you know that?
Let's focus on you guys.
Now, I needed to use that to disabuse your mind. That you must be able to have seen significant work that have been done in the platform. You must be able to, that's what we're also doing with education. You must be able to look into what has happened. You must be able to come to the Black Wall Street house, the BWS house, and see what is there practically. You must be able to appreciate what has been done, what have been measured, some of the videos were put out. You have to appreciate that significant work that has been established. Uganda must appreciate that the significant work has been done. And all we need to do is just to move out of the tipping point that we are, and boom, activities will begin to ripple effect of industrialization will just begin to take place.
Let's talk to the skeptical viewer who is saying, I had invested in the development channel. How then would I go to the Black Wall Street offices to seek for the same benefits? Let's first address that issue right now.
Now, there's a lot of people that probably did invest in the product purchase investment. Now, actually, they bought into a system as organic investors. And we like to make people understand that as organic investors, you are now part of the system. An organic investor is like an organ in the body. You become a significant part of that body. And what it is that you must be able to go through the development stages of that company. Now, the company hasn't terminated. The company has evolved over time. And it didn't just stop and become stagnant, but it has actually morphed through its growth trajectory and has become what it is. And of course, a whole lot of Nigerians have actually appeared in Uganda to actually interpret the fact that this thing didn't just die. This thing has just morphed into a completely whole new life. Let me tell you something about investment. When you buy into an investment, you buy into an intellectual property. Did you know that? Because a certain person invested in Facebook when it was at its organic stage. And I think about 10 years later, the person was able to cash out with about, I think about 300 million. It's on the news. But the person was able to wait all that long because they believed in the intellectual property they had actually bought into. So when you buy into an investment, you're buying into an intellectual property that definitely will thrive. So it's a good thing to intermittently, confirm, all right, investigate where what you have actually invested into is actually at in their growth trajectory. When you plant a seed, you go to water the seed. You go to find out what it is about the seed. You go to find out how you can enable that seed to thrive. So, but we are not, because in Africa, we have not been educated rightly in terms of investment. And I started with saying about education.
Education, sensitization, and so forth.
In the West, from the cradle, from their primary schools, they begin to teach them about investment. They don't depend on the paycheck that comes at the end of the year.
But do you have a timeline of how and when these individuals shall be getting their withdrawals from the development channel?
Oh, sure, of course. I told you that withdrawals is designed to kickstart in April. Yes, in April. And of course, we have a whole lot of projections and activities that must begin now.
Williams Ezi, the Director Communications at the Black Wall Street. We are having this conversation on the Unending with us on the #1 breakfast show in the country for the latest information. I still have the Director Communications at the Black Wall Street, Mr. Williams Ezi, and he was telling me about the tripartite platform which includes the Black Wall Street, the Development Channel, and also the Redirect Mall. But how can young people access the services at the Black Wall Street channel?
All right. Now, it is not the tripartite, but it's actually the Trinity Platform.
Trinity Platform.
Exactly.
Okay, you have the Development Channel, the Redirect Mall, and the Black Wall Street.
And the Black Wall Street. And I began to tell you that before, when a lot of people came in, we were at the Development Channel. Now, at that time, there was no Redirect Mall. Now, I remember telling you that we are called the Black Wall Street because that's the name we carefully chose. That's the name our chairman, that's Charles N. Lambert, carefully chose, to represent what we're doing here. And of course, he got that name when he traveled to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah. All right, and where he got the vision, all right, to rebuild Africa, or to create this economy that could actually bring Africa out of their economic slavery and bring us to economic independence. Now, the system of economy that the Black Wall Street practiced then, all right, 100 years ago anyway, was what we call the trap and reinvest system. It's a recipe, it's an economic recipe. Indians use it, the Jews use it, because that trap and reinvest keeps money circulating within a community. And for the Black Wall Street then, it kept circulating over 23 times before you could actually move out. And through that trap and reinvest recipe of economy, they were able to build post office, they were able to have transport systems, hospital system. They had over 11 jets that was bombed by white racist Americans and crumbled that system. And so that's the recipe that we are also using here at the Black Wall Street through our Redirect Mall. Now, through our Redirect Mall, which is actually our e-commerce platform.
That's where Pan-Africanism comes to the center
Exactly,
stage.
because now we are not engaging in capital flight again. We are not going to buy things, but now
out of Africa.
Yeah, we have to now buy Africa.
Sourcing from our African producers.
Our African, yes. Now when you go to Redirect Mall, you can now buy the things that we have there. And of course, we already have a product. Did you also know that Amazon, for instance, started with just books? What we currently have, most of what we currently have at the Redirect Mall now are the philosophical quotes, the portraits. That it actually contains the 1,000 philosophical quotes of Charles N. Lambert, our chairman. So you can buy it for just $30. And of course, the people that are going to be selling these portraits are going to be Ugandans. Ugandan youths are going to be selling it, and as they sell it, they make commissions from it. So that's already immediate employment, immediate engagement.
Indeed.
For the youths that are going to be using
the viewer who is watching Morning at NTV right now is eager to join Black Wall Street, and they're saying, how do I join? So how do young people actually get to join Black Wall Street or your services?
Yeah, like I said, we have been, our growth trajectory, as I said, has been the development channel, the Black Wall Street Stock Exchange, and the Black Wall Street Platform, the Stock Exchange Platform, the Black Wall Street Economic Circle, and then the Redirect Mall. Of course, they can go to the Charles N. Lambert corridor, charleslambertcorridor.com. We have the career page there. They can actually go there and submit their application, for immediate engagement. So that's how they are going to participate. Also, we have, I told you about the 20 jurisdictions.
You did.
Yes. Now, we already have what we call PAMSECs, permanent secretaries, who are also acting as governors or development partners in these 20 jurisdictions. Now, we already have immediate employment for 5 for payment facilitators who are going to directly work with these governors or these permanent secretaries. That is job already created. Are you getting what I'm saying?
Indeed.
So that is, so they are going to, the youths that are located in all these jurisdictions we have mentioned in Uganda are going to begin to be immediately recruited. We also have some relationship with some recruiters here in Uganda who are going to actually begin to recruit a whole lot of the youths for the things that we are doing in terms of security, in terms of administrators,
Indeed.
and then for construction workers that are going to be directly involved in the M7 banks within the 20 jurisdictions.
All right. As some individuals wait for their withdrawals in April, applications still open?
Yes,
can people apply for the development channel?
Yes, applications are still open. Activities are still open. And we are also making available some further of those product purchase investment. We have actually broken it down that people can actually pay in installments, make it easier for them. All right.
Williams AZ, the Director of Communications at the Black Wall Street. We couldn't have been much more proud to have you engage us on this very, very pertinent conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And of course, the conversation was largely centered around the Trinity Platform. That is the Black Wall Street, the development channel, and also the retail. The Redirect Mall, where we actually, the Ubuntu comes to force. African producers selling their merchandise among Africans. That is really huge, and it will help deal with the unemployment, market issues that we've been dealing with. I don't have market and so forth. That story will be long gone. My name is Romy Busik, and of course, yes, the kings and queens, boys and girls who are celebrating their birthdays on this particular day also be cognizant of the fact that we are still dealing with a very, very deadly disease, the COVID-19 pandemic. 40,395 cases